starting in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Veronica.
And I'm Studio Steve.
We are the Pod Sound School.
And this is PodBitz. PodBitz is a quick and easy way to digest the latest news and events in podcasting.
Learn about actionable tips to podcast like a beast.
Listen to our podcast recommendations.
And be in the know with what is up in the PSS community.
And we do it all live.
While the clock is ticking.
Unedited.
And raw.
So get those ears ready.
Crank those speakers up.
And let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of PodBitz, which is
Hello, lovelies.
Bonus episode of the Pod Sound School podcast that we do every week on Wednesday, usually at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But today we had a power outage here in Salt Lake City that lasted a few hours, so that was a free nap. Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Yes, we were unplugged.
We were unplugged, no Wi-Fi, which I commented on Twitter too was scarier for me than not having food or water.
So we post this episode on our podcast later today, and we also post this video on our Facebook page, Pod Sound School for Replayed, if you want to go and keep watching our lovely faces.
Yes, and we usually start off our PodBitz with a segment about the PSS community, what's going on in our world, just to keep you updated with all the fun PSS stuff.
Yes, and for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we will stay here after this. The PodBitz session is over to answer some questions, so stick around and we'll answer your questions and chat with you.
Yeah, or if you're listening on the podcast, you can come over on Twitter on Wednesdays and ask us some questions or comment or tell us what you want to hear more of.
Yeah, so we went to Podfest.
Yes, in Orlando. It was our first Podfest experience.
Yeah.
And we got to meet a bunch of our online podcasting friends. Mm-hmm. And we got to bond with them over large amounts of food.
Yes, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. And we learned...
We overcame our insecurities and shyness and talked to everybody and their service dog.
Oh, and it's so great. I mean, if for nothing else...
Why are you not laughing? It's funny.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you have any kind of social anxiety or if you're work from home and you're introverts like us who never see the outside world, this is such a good experience to go to these conferences, to actually shake real hands and meet real people.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So talking about Podfest, we met Travis Brown. He's a podcaster, a teacher, and the inventor of PodDecks.
Yes.
PodDecks are unique podcast interview questions and unique ideas for episodes.
Yeah.
You can get a deck for $19, and they have interview desk. I knew it.
You got three decks out.
And
she got three decks out.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty cool because they take the thinking out of the equation. So if you're new to podcasting, you should check them out. And we're going to leave the link on the description of this episode.
Yes, they're really cool. And they're like card decks, basically, with a bunch of cards with interview questions and things. So we also got to meet, for the first time, Angel Slimokoski, I think. She's the senior director of this music licensing. Of Spirit Production Music. So she really is wanting to educate podcasters about the importance of actually using music that you own the license to and not to fall for the free music scams that are out there. And they're not even scams, but the copyright is getting more and more serious.
Yeah. We recorded an impromptu podcast episode at the VAP launch there at Podfest with her, with Joe Pardo, Larry Roberts, Jody Kringle from Audio Branding Podcast, and Larry from Readily Random, and Joe Pardo, which is the organizer of Indie PodCon.
Yeah, so it was really fun. And also...
Shout-outs.
Yeah, shout-outs, but we don't quite have enough time for shout-outs during this segment. Maybe they'll link into our next segment of This Week in Podcasting.
This Week in Podcasting.
So, This Week in Podcasting, what's going on? Do you want to finish up those shout-outs real quick?
Yeah, so I want to give a shout-out to one of our Facebook group members. Her name is Katie Wright, and her podcast is called Staying Connected. She was diagnosed with a rare disease. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce
Vascular Ehlers-Danlos
syndrome,
or VEDs.
And she's using her podcast to find more people with this syndrome, and she interviews them in her podcast. And I just think that this is so cool. This is what podcasting is about, and I just had to give her a shout out for that. Good job, Katie.
Yeah, and also while we're talking about shout outs and finishing up with the PSS community stuff, if you have been listening for a while and you're still tinkering about the idea of starting your own podcast, podcast. We are in luck. Months and months and months of development have finally come to fruition, and we are excited to announce the launch of our first podcast course, which is going to be for podcasting beginners, and we're calling it the Smart and Sexy Podcast Launch. We're really excited about that. We're actually doing market research to find out new ideas for content still as we develop our course and develop our modules. And so if you could fill out a survey for us, that would be amazing.
If we have impacted your show on your life in some way.
It's really easy. It's like
this will be a form of paying it back to the Pod Sound School and to support us somehow. It's just to take a few minutes of your time and take this survey. It's pretty easy to take.
It's like 4 minutes, and everyone.
Just a few questions.
I don't know if everyone does, but I hate taking surveys. It's pretty. But
they're so useful. We want to make something that you guys need. We want to. We have so many talents and so many ways to make your podcast successful that we just want to narrow it down and make it so good for you that you will say yes.
And this is really exciting for us too, because there's many different types of podcast courses, and our podcast course is really focusing on the smart and the sexy element of your personality, of your
He's the
message.
Sexy, I'm the smart.
Yeah, of course. And we're really trying to, with Veronica has this strong focus on branding, and then of course my long background of audio production. With the help of Veronica, I've been dialing in my teaching method of making all of this audio production knowledge fit into a really easy to understand method that gets you out of the gate with the easiest possible editing and the highest possible audio production. The course is going to come with templates and presets for your DAW. We're just super excited, and we're
going to be there with you, holding your hand along the way. And by the end of the course, you're going to have a podcast that you're going to feel very, very proud about, and it's going to be smart and sexy.
So let's also get to some
strong
other news.
Branding and strong social media.
Yeah, but if you want to get on the waiting list for that, go to podcastingsmart.com. Also leave the link for that as well. But what were some other things that went on this week in podcasting? We had Libsyn just added headliner integration. So that's really cool. If you use Libsyn as your podcast host, or if you're thinking about a host, maybe you want to use Libsyn. They just integrate headliner, which makes audiograms. And then Headliner's competitor, or friends, because we're all friends in the podcasting industry, right? Wave, with a double V, has posted details on this really cool blog article about how to promote your podcast on TikTok. And especially if your audience or your ideal listeners, if they are under 30, then you want to get on TikTok. And Wave is showing this really cool article about how you can incorporate audiograms and different fun videos that you can make very easily after you've recorded your podcast to put onto TikTok.
And the link in bio too.
Yeah, and they just started a link in bio thing too. They're rolling it out. Some users of TikTok already have it. Oh, this week in your queue. So, Veronica, what's going on this week in your queue?
Oh, this week in my queue, I have the Smart Passive Income podcast with Pat Flynn.
Ooh, you gotta love the Pat.
I need me some Pat. On episode 404, oh my gosh, kudos to you, Pat. Pat interviews Patrick Lencioni about his latest book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. This is an interesting subject for those of you who have a team or are considering to hire a team. They talk about how we need to bring more vulnerability, trust, productive conflict, and accountability to our teams. These are vital for the success of your organization. So let's start thinking about our podcast like a business.
Yes, and then in my queue, I have something a little funner. It's from NPR's show Shortwave podcast, and both of these podcasts actually were recommended to us from two different newsletters from Paul Kondo, and he has the Podcast Gumbo newsletter.
He has very good recommendations.
Very good recommendations. So subscribe to his newsletter, and every Wednesday you'll get recommendations for cool podcasts. But Shortwave, an NPR show, this is a specific episode you need to go listen to. It's called One of the Germiest Places in the Airport. And even though this episode came out on December 26th,
it's very pertinent right now.
Yeah, and you might be surprised. We won't tell you what the germiest place is, but
go listen.
We weren't surprised by it, but we didn't think about it at first. And it's like, what do they do about this problem, right? Okay, let's move on now to our tip of the week. What do you think?
Yeah.
Tip of the week.
Wait till I tell you everything.
Okay, so Veronica, take it away.
So the tip of the week is coming from me to yours truly, the direct and indirect ways to make money with your podcast. So some of the direct ways are donations and premium content. And there are two platforms that work with this kind of monetization tool, and they are Patreon and Supercast. And I think we talked about Supercast in the past here on PodBitz. This is just a very cool way to make your premium content and to charge your listeners to access those premium episodes that you make. The other way is the sponsorships and ads. These are a little tricky and require you to do a little bit more research, and also to have a good amount of downloads per episode.
Yes.
Then we have affiliate links. With affiliate links, you can sign up with Amazon to
you
get
could do
these
Amazon,
affiliate
you
links.
could do any product that you like. Hit them up. Most people have an affiliate program.
Most people have affiliate programs, so look into this and then add those links to the descriptions of your show, and then call to actions on your podcast episodes. And also selling merchandise is a good way to directly make money with your podcast. You know, logos of your podcast, or catchy phrases that you say during your podcast on t-shirts, mugs, or any kind of merchandise. Indirect ways to monetize: coaching and consulting, digital downloadable products like ebooks, courses, and apps, services and software. Public speaking. This is good for public speaking. Organize conventions and events. And if you want to dive a little deeper on this ways to monetize, I wrote an article, and I'm going to drop the link to the article on the description of this episode as well. Go read it. It's full of gems.
Yeah, it's a really great article.
Gems.
And finally on that, if you haven't started doing your email marketing, which was tips that we're always saying, that's the first step to start monetizing, right? But that finishes it up for another episode of PodBitz. If you haven't rated and reviewed our podcast, that would mean a lot to us. ratethispodcast.com/PodSoundSchool.
Yes. Share with your friends who are trying really, really hard to grow our listenership. So just share it with everybody.
Yeah, and also if you're ready to access premium content, we now have a membership-only podcast RSS feed with some bonus videos you get at podsoundschool.com/premium. And follow us over on any of the social media platforms.
Instagram, Twitter at PodSoundSchool. And join our Facebook community.
See you later, guys.
Bye, love you.
Laboratories functionally designed for the student's use. The new miracle of modern tools